if your behavior is a series of brain habits and looking at cravings and addiction, they just operate the same way. So what is it that your mind is saying that projecting onto this cookie, or whether it's a glass of wine, or whether it's some other thing? What's that psychological hook? Western medicine approach has really taken a reductionist approach. It sees the body as a machine. And we have this biology, and then we can use different drugs to affect that machine. However, we don't live isolated from our biology. Our mind, our spirit, our aspirations, what we think about is actually creating information that's informing the body.
Hello, this is Blanca, and welcome to another episode of Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth. I am really excited to have my good friend Holly Stokes back. Holly is a master NLP coach, a hypnosis trainer, as well as an author, and my good friend. With that, I'd like to welcome Holly. Holly, take it away.
Hi, thank you for having me on again. This is great. I love what you're doing, really being a voice for helping people recognize we don't have to have the same stigma about mental health, and that we can also empower ourselves for taking charge of our health, our vitality, and there's so much more that we can be doing to really care for ourselves.
Holly, I had so much feedback on our last interview that we did, and for anyone that didn't catch that, there is an episode with Holly, so please look at the YouTube channel. And the many questions that people asked about was they had questions about the subconscious mind, about their health, about feeling empowered to take their health into their own hands. And some of the individuals that did contact me also just talked about their physical health and things they felt they couldn't control. So can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so how we understand, well, let me kind of share this, and I may have mentioned this in the other video as well, but our Western medicine approach has really taken a reductionist approach. It sees the body as a machine, and we have this biology, and then we can use different drugs to affect that machine. However, we don't live isolated from our biology. Our mind, our spirit, our aspirations, what we think about is actually creating information that's informing the body. And that has a lot to do with how the body is affected. So people sometimes say, this doesn't sound like airy-fairy stuff. Well, we know that your mind affects your body and that your body physically responds to what you think about. So is it okay if I kind of guide you through a short process?
Please take us down that path.
Great. So here's an illustration about how our mind affects our body and how our body physically responds to what our mind is focusing on. So imagine out in front of you a lemon. Imagine seeing that lemon. Now you can see the bright glowing surface, the little lights, glowing off the dimples on the skin of the lemon. You can see the brightness of the lemon. And now imagine taking a knife, like a cutting board, right? And taking a knife and just cutting that lemon in half. So now you have these two halves of the lemon. And as you look at that inner part, you can see the little wedges, the segments. And now just give it a squeeze in your mind's eye, just squeezing it just a little bit. And those juices glisten over the skin. You might even get some of that lemon spray in the air. You can start to smell it. And as you recognize and notice that smell of it, go ahead and just bite into it. Taking a big bite, the sour juices flowing across your tongue. And did your body respond?
I felt I shook a little because I tasted sour.
Yeah. Our body can physically respond. We didn't really have a lemon. And a lot of, as hypnotists, we like to use this to illustrate, like, your mind is so powerful. Your body is actually responding to what you think about. We don't recognize how much our body is responding to what we think about. But this is a great illustration. We didn't have a lemon, but our body responded as if we could smell it, and as if we bit into it, we could feel the saliva glands working or our mouth puckering up. So there's also another way that directly affects our health in how our mind is impacting our body. And this is clearly illustrated in the stress response. So in the stress response, one end, there's two parts of our nervous system. It's called the autonomic nervous system. One end of the spectrum represents the fight or flight. We're all familiar with that. We get triggered, driving in traffic, maybe somebody cuts us off. We feel this fear response that comes up. So that's one end of the nervous system spectrum. The other end is rest and digest. Now, our body, when we're stressed, our body is operating on this spectrum between the fight or flight and the rest and digest. It's operating somewhere on this spectrum. Now, our body does different things within each of these spectrums. So when we're in fight or flight response, the body prepares to fight off an attacker or run away. And actually, people have talked about fight, flight, or freeze. Sometimes we feel like paralyzed. I can't say anything. So when we're in that response, the body physically releases hormones into the bloodstream, epinephrine, cortisol, to prepare the body to fight off or run away. And it does specific things to your body's system as well. Your heart rate increases, so you feel that pounding heart rate, your breath becomes more shallow. Our blood is actually moved away from our brain and moved away from our intestinal organs into the muscles so that we have the active energy. The liver starts releasing chemicals to create quick energy from the glycogen that's stored in the liver. So that also becomes part of the bloodstream. And our body has this response to these stress chemicals, right? And it's all for that quick burst of energy that we can take care of business and get away from the tiger. But now, if we look at our life, we don't have tigers that are chasing us, but our body is operating the same way. Now, at the other end, the rest and digest end, this is where our body recycles those stress hormones. It recycles the hormones, gets us back into balance. This is where we are resting. Our body is moving the blood back to the internal organs. The body works on that digestion, and it's also updating our antibodies. This is where our body actually works on its immune system. The heart rate is slower. We feel, blood pressure drops. We feel that deep breathing. And so rest and digest is where your body naturally does healing and repair. So what's happening in our culture now, we're getting so many people triggered into this stress response without getting back to the rest and digest response, that a lot of people are stuck in this anxiety, overwhelm, and now it will take a toll on your body physically through time. And as well as there can be immediate effects like anxiety or panic attacks, that what we're thinking about, the body is responding to that, and it feels out of control because it's happening automatically. So here's one of the key healing principles that you can do to get your body back to rest and digest, because that's where your body naturally reclaims its balance, heals and repairs, and that is your body's healing space. So if you have a health issue or you're feeling out of control, meditation, deep breathing, anything you can do to get yourself back into that rest and digest state, and to do that regularly. Now with NLP and these other tools, the hypnosis tools that I work with, we actually recognize a lot of our stress is created within our own mind. Like, most people just take it for granted. We have bills, we have traffic, boss expectations or whatever, but it's what our mind is saying about it in the background that makes the biggest difference in how our body is responding.
So, Holly, you did write a book called A Lighter You, and you, in that book, help people with weight loss. It's my understanding that you are now working on a second book.
Yeah, so this next book is inspired from my own healing journey. So I was diagnosed with a chronic illness, an autoimmune condition that the doctors said was incurable. The title of the book is called The Miracle Code: Elevate Your Mind to Heal Your Body. And it's all about harnessing our minds, understanding how our mind informs our body, and how to harness our body's natural healing abilities to get beyond these things that are making illness or symptoms worse, and get our body back into healing and repair states.
So, Holly, I'm really glad that you brought that up. So, I did want to ask you about your book and autoimmune diseases. And I know even just me working through my own personal traumas, I became very familiar with the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I know a lot of times what's happening in your head, it's the body and the head connected. Do you see that a lot of that self-talk and the anxiety that we cause ourselves in your experience also contributes to the worsening of autoimmune disease symptoms?
Oh, for sure. So we know like stress will make your symptoms or your health issues worse. We know stress can also, I would say, cause heart attacks. What causes your blood pressure to be high? Stress. That's what your body is doing in response to stress, right? What causes your blood pressure? We don't really think that we have control over the blood pressure, but when we're going back into rest and digest, your body is naturally lowering its blood pressure. So things like meditation can help bring the edge of that stress down. And then as far as those habits and patterns, you mentioned going through trauma. So when we go through trauma or past, deep disappointment even, it kind of creates an imprint in our mental state and even in our mental perspective. And our mind and our body system can get triggered by things that are similar. If you've ever been in a car accident and then you're driving again, you notice you might feel jittery driving again, or you might notice this is, I've had clients come in for phobias of driving in construction zones because they may have had like a close call in those windows of time, and the brain remembers. It's wired to remember so that we can avoid some of the disasters in our life. But what it does, if it's not clearing things back, then we kind of find ourselves fighting this anxiety or trauma response that our body's getting triggered back to that. So we can rewire our brain habits and patterns to be more at ease in those different situations, and to really draw from our inner resources, our inner reserves of calm, or even our expanded aspirations about how we want to show up in some of those situations where we might feel difficulty.
So, Holly, you said something that I wanted to point out to the audience. You mentioned meditation twice. That is just such a healthy way to get recentered, and it's something that anyone as an individual can do on their own. If your way of being able to take your health into your own hands, feel empowered that you do have that capacity to do something to help you improve your state of being through meditation. Is that one of the things that you talk about in the Miracle Code?
Yeah, and definitely there's actually several books that have been written about the benefits of meditation. We know the scientific benefits of meditation. There's even, if you go to my website, I have blogs that talk about these top 20 benefits. And this also comes from a psychology researcher that put this paper together. Top 20 benefits of meditation proven by science. Decreases loneliness, decreases depression. It increases the place of your brain that feels connection and compassion. And they did this through studying, monks who were meditating over years and years. It also has effects on the body. It boosts your immune system. If you're dealing with a health issue, one, you'll just find relief and well-being through meditation. Some people find it's kind of difficult. A lot of people think it's about just blanking your mind, but your mind likes to be busy. So there's some ways that you can use focus points to focus your meditation, make it easier. People don't recognize how natural it is. So anytime you've watched the flames of a fire flicker and you just kind of stared into those flames, you're going into a meditative state, light alpha brainwave response. Or if you've sat and watched the ocean, watch the peaceful roll of the waves, it starts tuning your mind and your body into kind of that hypnotic meditative state. And meditation, hypnosis are really on the same plane. Meditation is something you do yourself. Hypnosis is when someone guides you through it. And it's just that process of quieting your mind, creating that space. And then with hypnosis, especially, we're redirecting the mind to do things for you. So meditation, yes, it's one of the key things that people can do to really make a difference. And I drew on this as well for my own self and my own healing journey.
Holly, tell us a little bit more about the miracle code. You've talked about having an autoimmune disorder. And what is it that you will be sharing with readers of your book about how you healed your autoimmune symptoms?
Yeah, so 2006, just after I had certified in NLP and hypnosis, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune. The doctors told me it was incurable, but here they, offer drugs to manage the symptoms. Of course, you want to follow your medical advice, and especially when it was so new. And through the window of time, as I was applying what I knew about rewiring anxiety, rewiring trauma, I recognized that I had these very subtle anxiety patterns that would then trigger my body into a stress response and make symptoms worse and make the flare-ups worse. And I kind of approached it from multiple perspectives. I've always been kind of fascinated with health and certified as an herbalist. So used natural methods as well. Also recognize autoimmune, unfortunately, has been a growing issue. More and more people are getting diagnosed and they don't recognize what's going on with their body. So what can we do at a nutritional level to support the body in its healing process? And what can we do at a mental level to support the body in that process? So when we have stress, our body on that flight or flight response, it actually causes the body to make symptoms worse. And I would notice that relationship to the stress that I experienced and then how my body felt from that. Some of this was from past trauma, and in healing the past trauma, healing the brain habits of stress and anxiety associated with the past trauma over time. And for me, it was a process. There were some multiple layers to work through. But then over time, I got to a place where I was clear and more balanced. And then my symptoms just kind of started to fade away. And now I don't have any symptoms. I've been medication free for since 2016, where I'd been hospitalized a couple times before. So I believe we can actually, by really caring for our emotional self, caring for our mental self, and caring for our body self, our mind, body, spirit, if you will, by working on these multiple levels, I believe that we are meant to heal. That the health challenges that come up are your body telling you, hey, there's something for you to resolve at your inner self so that you can move beyond this condition and get to a place of healing, or move your body into a space of healing and repair and rebalance, rather than just having an illness or symptom, for the rest of your life. So I believe that we are meant to heal, that we're meant to resolve what's going on under the surface that's creating that interference to our health, and move beyond it.
And Holly, what I am taking away from this conversation is even individuals that don't have autoimmune symptoms, diseases, still have all of these side effects just from stress and overwhelm. It can be very debilitating. And you also mentioned that a lot of the stress we feel is very much created by ourselves in our own head. So what can we as individuals actively do to combat overwhelm and stress that we ourselves create?
Yeah, and I would say, think of it as bringing compassion to yourself. So there's some really great, lots of different flavors of meditation, different styles of meditation. When we kind of clear out the mind from thinking, the problem with a lot of us is that we have learned to think too much. We're overthinkers. We're trying to analyze things or figure things out. And anyone who's played professional sports, anyone who's an athlete knows about the zone. And you as a runner, you probably have had experiences where you're doing these marathons. I know you do these amazing marathons that you kind of tap into a space of flow. Your mind is not thinking. You have that clarity of mind and you're just moving intuitively. You're in that space of flow. So that intuitive flow or that intuitive zone, that we call, it's a moving meditation, essentially. So meditation doesn't have to be quiet, sitting for 4 hours on a mountaintop. It can be any activity that brings you that feeling of flow. There's actually a psychology researcher that talked about this. His book is titled Flow, and he wanted to find what makes people happy. Well, he noticed there was a trend that people would tap into these flow states, that they would, report more happiness. So flow is when we get into that space where we're kind of moving intuitively or doing something intuitively. Maybe we're even, very skilled at something, but it's taking our whole focus. And there's a few elements I believe that lines up. One is being present in the moment, being engaged in a focal point or an activity, and then not doing the overthinking thing that we have all learned to do. Letting yourself tap into more of like your heart space. Tap into your intuitive self, your expansive self, your creative self. And from that place, that's where we can build up our inner reserves that help us then move into that rebalancing effect.
Yeah, Holly, one thing I wanted to add to the meditation, and yes, for me, a lot of it happens while running because it is a meditative experience for me.
Yeah.
I also wanted to talk about journaling, and I know it's something you recommend. It's something I was resistant to for quite some time, and then I really got into personal development, and it really is one of the high performance habits encouraged to journal. And I know for me, once I actually did get into the practice and habit of journaling, I was just able to get out so much that was in my head, the things that were causing the stresses and the anxieties, just put them out there so that they were no longer in me. It was a way of kind of like flushing them away.
Yeah.
Just even seeing them on paper, seeing, okay, is this true? Is what I'm feeling, is this true? And seeing, well, no, it's not. Yeah, I've been carrying this and I've been carrying it so much that I started believing my own story. So I also highly recommend journaling.
Yeah.
I do thank you for that. You were one of the individuals that encouraged me to journal, as well as my mastermind with Brendon Burchard. But thank you for that. There's just so many practices out there that are available to all of us, free with no cost, and it just takes the decision to do them.
Yeah, for sure. And it's great that people are becoming more aware of resources that are out there and available, and really, being in charge of your own mind, body, spirit system. The more that we can tap into that inner flow experience, those inner states of inner calm, and building that up. There's so many ways to do it now. People are talking about breath work, and journaling is a great way to let things go, or a great way to like put on paper, see what your thoughts are doing, and then having that ability to reevaluate. So it's great that so many more tools are becoming available for people.
Holly, I dropped a term that some of the individuals in our audience may not be familiar with. Can you explain what a master NLP coach is?
Yeah, so we utilize a lot of the coaching skills. There's a lot that I really love from the world of coaching. I did go through and get my coaching certification, as well as NLP certification, and then went through to the master level certification, as well as NLP health. But basically, we take the model of coaching, which is rather than telling people what to do or giving advice, we create a safe place for people to connect with what they really want, get clear about their desires, And if you've worked with someone that's got some mastery in coaching, it's more about helping people recognize their own answers rather than telling them what they need or interpreting, what they're doing. Because when we can get to it from that place of this, this positive environment, we can get to it from that place and see our own pattern, then we become more flexible and ready to make the changes that we need to move forward in our potential. So we combine that model of coaching along with the tools of NLP, because sometimes we see our sabotage, but we can't get ourselves out of it. Oh, here I go again. I see it all the time with my clients that are wanting to get away from a craving. I know I shouldn't do it. I know I just had, donuts, but here comes the cookie and I can't stop myself. And so, there's a series of things that people are doing internally, their self-talk, their thoughts about it, their feelings about it, even what it means to them, that they're kind of trapped in a cycle of cravings or sabotage in so many different ways that we can kind of sabotage our results. So the NLP part just looks at, okay, if your behavior is a series of brain habits, and looking at cravings and addiction, they just operate the same way. So what is it that your mind is saying? What is it projecting onto this cookie, or whether it's a glass of wine, or whether it's some other thing, what is it saying? What's that psychological hook? And it's all about our inner meanings, our meanings that we hold internally, and then we're projecting onto the world. So with NLP, we recognize, well, hey, the brain is running a series of habits. And rather than staying stuck in the mercy of these loops and habits, we can just detour what the brain's doing and give it new things to do instead. So it's more of an education process, and then building up the new behavior. So then the mind learns to automatically detour, or to create balance with food, that we don't have to, avoid. And this is a problem with the diet industry too. They're eat this, don't eat this. And then they made a bunch of foods, bad foods. But now people start creating a war with themselves, because when they eat the bad foods, now they feel guilty, and then they start doubting themselves and self-defeating themselves. So we don't really want to make any food super negative. I still eat chips. I know some of the things aren't the healthiest for me, but what we want to do is help people find the balance. So I'm talking here about food, but this can also apply to your life. Any kind of extreme behavior, place where you're sabotaging yourself. What you're really looking for is that flow in life. How can you find the balance with these areas of life and with this sense of yourself?
And so, Holly, when I came to you for NLP, neuro linguistic programming, what I was working with is the stories I was telling myself, and just working on reframing them so that I could tell myself stories that actually served me and helped me, and instead of hurting me through negative self-talk, negative limiting beliefs. There is just so much expansive help that NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, can do, not just for weight loss or trauma, but just even the stories we tell ourselves that feed our own limiting beliefs. And again, we are causing that. It's in our head. It causes us stress. It causes us overwhelm. So I just think the stories we tell ourselves need to be better stories.
For sure. And, I think that's the basis of healing, is recognize what stories you're telling yourself and asking, okay, is there a better story I want to believe in? What do I really want to believe in about myself? Because a lot of what we've been given over the years is stuff that parents and teachers have told us that they may not have even intended, but somehow we picked up these messages.
So Holly, I'm really excited for the Miracle Code to come out. Absolutely. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience today, either about either of your books, NLP coaching, hypnosis, anything I did not know to ask you?
Sure. I have some free resources on my website. If you want more updates on the book, you can go to thebraintrainerllc.com/book, and you'll start getting the updates. I send out a newsletter a couple times a month. And then I also have kind of a mini NLP instant motivation with your brain. And so that is at the same website, thebraintrainerllc.com/free. And it'll take you through understanding your brain and understanding how these habits and patterns kind of get stuck, and kind of take some steps of what to do about it. I also have courses available through my website on meditation. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't know how to meditate. Well, it goes through several easy processes that you can do for meditation, and also self-hypnosis. So we can start, okay, and most people are like hypnotizing themselves all the time. Just what you said, I had my own story and then I believed the story, right? But if we change the story, well, we can also use the self-hypnosis skills to change that story to what's useful for your mind to believe in.
Yeah, so thank you for that, Holly. So I hope the audience takes away today, start meditating, start journaling, and start telling yourself better stories. Instead of beating yourself up and saying, I didn't do that, you can say, I didn't do that yet. You are a work in progress, but just even how you talk to yourself. And Holly, I always learn so much from you. Thank you so much. With that, thank you, audience, for being here again today on another episode of Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth. And I am looking forward to seeing you on our next episode.